computer. Okay, Josh, go ahead. Everybody who's logged in, thank you for showing up, and looks like everybody else turned off their video. That's good. So the two video people you can see are me. Let me look at the camera. Okay, now I'll look back at my screen. And Josh Archer, he's the TA for this class. He's done that before, and his actual PhD research is in
CS education.
CS education. Yeah, I knew that. I just had a brain fart. So anyway, go ahead, Josh. I will be monitoring the chat box and trying to chime in. Our preferred way for you to do questions is to type them in the chat box, because we can't always answer them right away, and then you'll forget to ask them. So as questions come up, type them in the chat box. Any that I can address directly, I'll just do it. Otherwise, it will come up on the guitar pretty quick. Josh, go ahead.
Okie doke. All right, so let's start with the page I usually go to get the labs open and find what we're going to be doing is the syllabus. So you can see the URL here, and from there we can see all the important stuff in the syllabus, which is nice to have. And also we have a list of the labs. So for today, we're going to be doing lab 0. Easy way to get them both open is to either middle click or hold control and left click, and it'll open them both. Now, what we have here are two HTMLs. You can see the HTML extension right here. And that's almost what we want. But what we want is to right click this, save it, and let's see, share the actual screen. As you can see, it is a .ipynb file. And I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download another one. But that's what we want. We want the ipynb file. So from there, download these two, and then you can drag the two files into this location here. That's how I got them, in this bay over here. Now, how did I open up this Jupyter Lab thing? Well, let's take a look at the tutorial, or I guess walkthrough is a good way to call it, in order to get that working. So, oops, that's the one I want. Okay, so we're going to be using a framework called Anaconda, and in order to get Anaconda installed, we're going to go here, but there is a nice little PDF right here, or I guess it's a PowerPoint. If you right click it and open it up and save it, you can open it up here. So we're going to run through the installation of Python, or not Python, Anaconda, which is ironically, Anaconda is not Python. It's a framework that hosts a lot of useful data science applications and languages and stuff. It's going to let us develop our Python labs and do them in a nice, easy framework. And I'll go over a couple nice things that it lets us do. So in order to let's see, the option to have it as a file isn't available. So let's see. When you go to the page, you want to right click the link here and then save the link as. And as you can see in the bottom left of my screen, it is a .ipynb file. Don't click the page in the background. I don't think that works. Yeah, that gives you a web page. You want to click the link right here, because this is what the actual file looks like. It doesn't look like this. Okay, so to get Anaconda installed, We're going to go to the URL anaconda.com. And again, this PowerPoint is available on the lab. Just save it and open it in whichever application you want. So we're going to go to anaconda.com. And from here, we're going to look into the individual edition. So products, individual edition. This is the free one. I imagine most people don't want to be paying when you don't have to. The installers at the bottom of the page show us. So I will go to Anaconda. So here's the individual edition, and the installers are down here. So here is the 64-bit installer for Windows. If you're using Mac or Linux, they've got installers here. If you're using anything else, they do have some additional installers. But if you're running something kind of strange, generally you can just run a virtual machine of Windows or Unix or something. So yeah, you get the installer, and you're pretty much just going to be clicking the default stuff for the installer. It may take a while. Not only is the download kind of big, but the installation is big. So if you get it up and running, downloading, installing, by the end of the lab, at least, should be done. You're just going to click all the default stuff. There's nothing you need to click off. There's no extra software you can opt out of. And then once you get that done, you'll have this Anaconda navigator. And I click this Jupyter Lab launch button to open up my Edge software, and that's what has the Jupyter Lab right here. So that is how you actually get the Anaconda framework installed and opened up. If it's quick for people, feel free to follow along as we go through the first two labs here. Well, I guess it's not really the first two. If you've got issues, just please put them in the chat and I'll get to them as I can. In the meantime, we're going to walk through the lab. So as you can see, there's quote unquote two labs. There's lab 00 and lab 00th. TH stands for take home. So we're going to go through lab 0, and I'm going to do it, and we'll do it together, and I'll try to prompt questions, take questions, whatever. And then you have homework, which is another lab that's generally very similar, of doing the same kind of stuff that you learned from the other lab that we did together. Both of these are, so both labs, not just these two, but 1 and 2 and 3, are going to be for a grade. This lab 0 we're going to be doing together. So generally the task is for you to follow along, do it, and turn it in. I'll talk about how we want it turned in later, but this one is worth a little bit of points. You just follow along, do the stuff, and it's basically free points. The take home is usually going to be the same kind of work, except you're going to be doing it yourself. All right. So I have these in my Jupyter Lab folder here. And the first thing I will show you is the most useful thing. If you go to settings, theme, and dark, because no one likes their retinas burned out. Now, sometimes there will be formula in the lab that look kind of weird in the dark mode. You can switch it back to light mode and then back and forth. Okay, so what are we doing with this? How do you get Jupyter Notebook? It is part of Anaconda. It's right here. Jupyter Lab is the software, and you click launch. So that installation we were going through, that is Anaconda, and it has Jupyter Lab right here. So why are we bothering with these .ipynb files? It's kind of weird. Why do I need to do that when I can just write my code in text file? So if I do this, it's not gonna do anything right now, but I can open up my Python interpreter, give it this text file right here, and run it, and it'll work. So I've got a text file, it's just a .txt, and I can make Python code in there. So why bother with all this fancy stuff? Well, in just a regular text file or a regular Python file, you can put comments and you can put code, but it can be difficult to, at a glance, read a big giant program, especially when it's multiple pages long. It's just text. It's all you get. The IPYNB files, which from now on I'm going to call a notebook, make it so that you have some better tools for both executing code and writing comments. So looks nicer and it's easier to organize. So as Dr. Cleveland just said, to get Jupyter Notebook, first thing you need is Anaconda. In order to get Anaconda, first thing you got to do, in the Lab0, there is a list of instructions which you can follow, or you can look at the PDF. I'm sorry, the PowerPoint that we were looking at earlier. It's right here. Okay. So as you can see in the notebook here, it's got the instructions, because it's the same thing I was just looking at. It's got the instructions to open up Anaconda. But let's look a little bit at this notebook file and see what it consists of. As you see the blue bar on the center side of the screen, I can move through the document and the bar moves. Now, why is that? Well, it's because a notebook file is a series of cells, and a cell can be one of three kinds of cell: a code, markdown, or a raw cell. So as we see right here, there's a markdown cell. What's a markdown cell? Well, it looks kind of like this. It's just a nice way of having comments that give you a lot more power. Like we have a link here that I'm gonna put for laboratory 0. And when I execute the markdown cell, the link shows up right here. You can't really do that in a text file. You'd have to put the actual URL. So this lets you do a lot of other stuff with, you can put images in, you can make things bold, you can make lists, all kinds of stuff. In addition to Markdown Cell, you can see the type of cell right here at the top. We have code cells. We wouldn't be able to really execute code and do stuff if we didn't have code cells. So here's an example of a code cell. You can go and edit this right here, because you kind of have, in the Markdown cell, you kind of have a edit mode and a view mode. So right here is a view mode, in that everything's ran. There's a big bold title here, and then just text. If I double click it, now I'm editing whatever I want to put there. I can change the size of the heading, whatever I want to do. And with the code cell, you can see the difference here, Markdown, code. I can edit and run my code just from here. I don't need to call the interpreter or anything. So I'm going to say, change this to my name, and then I'm going to run the cell. And what it's going to do is it's going to print whatever is in here. Somebody has some echo going on. There's two ways, at least, to run your code. When you have your code, how do I get the files into Jupyter Lab? It's pretty simple. You drag and drop. So I've got my bay over here, and I've got my file in wherever I downloaded it, and I'm going to just drag it and drop it. Or if you want, you can go through the whole file, import or open, whatever, but drag and drop's the easier way. All right. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to execute this code cell here. I'm going to hit Shift Enter because it's the hotkey and it's pretty simple. All right, it did printed hello Josh because that's what I told it to do. I can also hit the button up here, the play button, and it's going to run the cell. What all can we do in the code cell? Well, we can do anything that you would do in a normal Python program. I don't know what an abnormal Python program would look like, but let's see, what else can we do? We can add stuff together. I can say, give me a variable and set it to 5, and then print x minus 5 is something, just like this. So it's going to go sequentially, line by line, and it's going to execute everything it can find. There's 4 lines in this program, and there's 3 print lines. So the first one prints out a string. Second one prints out 3 plus 2, which is 5. The third line puts the number 5 into the variable x, but I didn't tell it to print anything. And then I say, I want you to print out x minus 5 is, and then the actual value. So x minus 5 is 0. I can make as many code cells as I like. I can put everything into one, or I can split it up. Different method for different approaches. Okay. The next thing, let's look at the next exercise. These are very simple because it's just the first lab. The main thing we would like to get through today is everybody has this either installed or installing, and you know how to submit the homework correctly. All right. So let me ask you guys. We need to identify the cell types below. There's 3 cells, 1, 2, 3. So what is the type of this cell right here? Does anybody know? Remember, there are 3 types of cells. I want to know which kind it is. Code cell. What makes you say code cell?
Good.
Top. Yes, there is an indicator right here that will show you the type of the cell. So here we have a Markdown cell. What happens when I execute a Markdown cell? Well, nothing once it's already ran. But if I double click it, I can change it to whatever I want. Electric. And once I do change it to whatever I want, I hit the execute hotkey, Shift Enter, or I hit this button here. And a Markdown cell, when you run it, it gives you comment and text and all the fun stuff like links and images and stuff like that. A code cell, when you execute it, it runs the code. So this is a code cell. There's no code here. It's just a comment, an actual Python comment. How do you get a Python comment? Well, you put a pound symbol in front of the line that you want to make as a comment. This is just a comment. It won't execute. Proof, print y, okay? And then the next one will be, this will run print x. So I've got print y and print x both in one code cell, but only one of these is going to execute because the other one is in a comment line. So x gets printed, y doesn't. And the reason is this is a comment line. It's just there for readability. Okay. Well, what about this one? What kind of cell is this one? The second one. Is it a Markdown cell, a code cell? Code cell. We can tell that because of right here, just like we did before. Now this one, it says to change it to a Markdown cell and run it. Now, how am I going to change the type of this cell here? I've already done it a couple times. And it's the method we've been using to figure out what type these cells are, is this little box here. Let's see, what was the first cell called again? Huh. I am not quite sure what you mean. If you're asking the first cell, what type is it? I believe that's what the question was. It is a code cell. It is and was a code cell. How do we know? Because it's right here. The second one is also a code cell. But the comment inside the code cell wants us to do something. It wants us to change it from a code cell to a markdown cell and then run it. So the way we do that, click the box, change it to markdown, and now you can see the code cell, still a code cell, but now the second one is a markdown cell. Yes, there's also a hotkey, escape plus the M key. M is in
Markdown.
Markdown here. I always have to resist the urge to do the joke from Archer, where they're trying to do phonetics, and for the letter M, he says Mancy, and they think it's Nancy, and everyone gets mad at him. All right, so let's run this markdown cell. And what does it do? Well, as I said before, all the fun formatting and links and all that stuff now appear visually. Okay. Now we have a third cell here. Can anyone tell me what kind of cell this third one is? How do you run the code? Well, indeed is a raw cell. We can tell from the same spot. The question, how do you run the code? It kind of depends what you mean, even though the answer is technically the same. This here is code cell. I can execute the code in here. And what that does is it calls the Python interpreter to come in here and say, look at all this text. It's a Python program, run it. And it does it. Now, how you make that happen is either click this button here, or you hit Shift plus Enter, and it does the same thing. Now, this is not a code cell, so you can't really run it as code. But what we have is another interpreter that works in this Markdown language, and it's going to come through, and instead of executing it like code, it's going to execute it into something visual. But the hotkeys are the same. You either click the play button or you click the Shift Enter button. Now this one is a raw cell. What happens when I execute it? Nothing. Just moved along. The blue bar just moved along. That's kind of strange. It doesn't have any of the nice formatting from the Markdown, and it doesn't have the ability to execute code. So what's the point? Well, the point of a raw cell, at least the most major one I can think of, is let's say I have some Python code that I want to use later, but I very specifically don't want to use now. Especially, I don't want you guys to be using it too early. Like, let's say I have a function that just deletes my computer. Like if I actually execute this line, the whole computer is a brick. And so I don't want to let you guys accidentally run something dangerous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the actual code for it, but I'm going to make it a raw cell. If I execute a raw cell, nothing happens. Now, I just made this up. You can change a raw cell to a code cell. There's no function, delete computer, that is actually going to do that. I haven't written it yet. I could think of a couple, but I think the Python interpreter is too smart for me to fool it. So now that I've changed it to a code cell, I'm trying to run it. As I said, there's no delete computer function. So what we have here is the nice pink box of encouragement. This is an error message. I guess technically it's an error, and part of it is the error message. This code it doesn't work. Why does it not work? Well, I called a function. I'll rename it function 1. And yes, there's a screenshot there in the chat for everybody. So I called my function's name, function1, but I never defined this function1. So here's kind of how it works. I say to the interpreter, hey, go find function1 and run it. It's okay. It goes and looks function1. Function1's not here. And that's kind of what it's telling me right here. I see. I can easily fix that by defining function. This is function 1. Fu1. All right. So now it's fine. Okay. That's pretty much everything that's actually need to be ran and executed in the lab. Last thing you kind of need to do is change this information right here. This is in a Markdown cell. So you can double click it, change it. Mine will look like this. All right, so now it is, I know that I've actually gone through here and ran it. And you need to do the same thing. But what we would like to have is Blackboard. So as you have on your Blackboard for this course, this is section 13. We've got the homework. And so for our first lab, notice that we have, there's the lab itself, and then there's the take-home portion. I'll talk a little bit about this one in a second. But here on the submission spot, you see that we want the notebook file and the PDF file. So there should be 2 files in your submission. I need them both. Early in the semester, I'll usually give you a message like, hey, I didn't get the notebook file, or the PDF file wasn't correct. And then as time goes on, I'll start taking off points, and they'll take off more and more and more, to the point that later in the semester, if you don't give me the PDF file, it's probably going to be a big chunk of your grade off, because I need both. So the question is, how do I get both? Well, where's the notebook file? The notebook files were right there. How do I get it? Well, I download it. So now I have the notebook file that, as you can see, I've done this a bunch today, is edited and has all the stuff. And this is part 1 of what I need to upload. Part 2 is I need this as a PDF. There are at least 3 ways to do this. I will start with the newest one that we're hoping will work. So I have my notebook file open here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to print my file here. And at least every Windows machine has the ability to just, instead of printing to a printer, print it to a PDF. So I'm going to say this is a PDF, and hit save, and it's fine. I'll have another downloaded. You can see I did this earlier, the test PDF, and I'll open it. Let's see. So the PDF I downloaded looks like this, and this is exactly what we want. So I have now the PDF and the notebook file. So I will browse my local files and put them all on there. So there should be 2. There's the PDF and the notebook. What else? So that's how you submit. Oh yeah, and let's talk about the fact that there's 2 labs. This is the lab that we go through. Generally, what the grade on this is going to be, it's going to be a few points, like 3. Just to show that, and this one's really short, but that I went along and did it and you followed along and kind of got it, because the point of these labs is, let's see, how do I say this? I found that at least in programming classes, it's not very useful to be taking notes, especially since this is being recorded. What is useful is to watch what I do, and as I go from step to step, if you're not comfortable that you can do that yourself, or you don't understand part of me moving from step to step, you stop the class and you ask why, because that's my job. I mean, I don't much appreciate the idea that teachers just get up on the whiteboard and they say what they came there to say and they don't interact at all. What good does that do? You could just get a YouTube lecture online. If there's something you don't understand, I'm here to help. So we only have like 40 minutes a day, 3 times a week to get this interaction time. So let's use it as we can. So you follow along with what I'm doing, and if you understand, cool. Change everything the way I'm changing it, do the stuff I'm doing it, your name instead of my name, so on and so forth. And then the take home is generally going to be the skills we were working on in the lab, except I'm not going to do them with you. I may make some comments on it, and almost always the comments in the the task in the take home is based on what we did in class. It may be longer, more fleshed out, but it's usually the same thing. So this week, what do we got? Some pretty easy stuff. We've got some videos, and really what you need to do is be able to change cells to certain types. That's what the instructions are saying, and edit them a little bit, and then execute them. I say execute a lot. Execute and run are going to be synonymous. So as I change this from a Markdown to, I don't know, code cell, and I can run it, that's a lot of what your homework's going to be. All right. Let me think. I got through that a little faster than I did this morning. Yeah, Lab 0, short. It's really the gist of it is getting Anaconda installed and getting Jupyter Lab open. It's just the framework stuff. The question, when will the labs be due? I believe this semester it's going to be Fridays. So the work for the previous week is going to all be due on the same day. Is it Friday this semester?
Generally,
yes,
generally a week after they're presented. So the
Okay.
due dates are on the Blackboard uploader thing. So where Josh showed you where to upload the 2 files,
Yeah.
go back to that because it'll show you where the due date is.
Yeah, I just Edge doesn't have my info, so I got to open.
The Fox of Fire.
Yeah, that one. 13. All right, so homework. And
So when
here
he
we are.
clicks on ES0, it tells you the due date in that corner. And generally it's a week from presentation date. So in this case, this one's due next Wednesday. ES1 will be due Friday a week.
Yep. Let's see. There's 2 questions, kind of similar. How do you download the PDF? And can you go over what is to be submitted again? Yep. All right. So it says right here the 2 kinds of files we want. There's the IP, Y and B, which I'm going to call a notebook, and the PDF. Now, some people may not know what file extensions are, and that's fine. I made an untitled.txt. This is the file name is untitled, and the type is txt, text file. What we want is the notebook file, which is this one. This is a notebook file. It is lab 00. I've edited it a little bit. So this is part 1 of what we want. I want to take the same file and I want a PDF version of this. Now, there is the way of printing it. You just click on the screen, Control P, and brings up the print dialog. This seems to be working, so If it works, cool. If not, you can always go to File, Export as HTML, but we don't want HTML files. Blackboard doesn't like HTML files, but there is HTML to PDF.com, which will convert a HTML file into a PDF. Oops, wrong way. This will work. This is a web page. And I'm gonna turn it into a PDF. There it goes. So I got my HTML downloaded as a PDF, and that's the other thing I submit. So what that gave me was a zip file. What is to be submitted is two things: a PDF and a notebook file. Please don't submit a zip file. Please don't put these two in a folder. Please don't submit an HTML. I need a notebook file and a PDF file. Easiest way so far is Control P to get this dialog. Alrighty. Any other questions? Are we supposed to make an account for Anaconda? I don't remember, because I did this a year ago. I don't remember having to make an account. When I did it this morning, they wanted one. So just use like a throwaway email. That's what I would do. Tell them your name's Mud or something. Question is, should we delete the file after you submit it or keep it in a separate folder? If you're talking about the homework, they're so tiny that it probably doesn't hurt to hold on to them until the semester's over. As for all the installation stuff, sure, you can delete them. Let's see. How do you download the notebook file? Well, generally the procedure for every lab is going to be, I'm going to go to the syllabus. I'm going to open up the two notebook files for the day. Open up this one, open up that one. Now notice these are HTMLs. I don't want HTML. I want notebook. So here's where it is. You can see in the bottom left it says .ip y and b at the end. I'm going to right click, save as, and I'm going to put it where I want. See, it says notebook file. Same thing for the take home. So the notebook file that we turn in is the original that we downloaded. Not quite. You download the original and follow along with me and edit what is supposed to be edited and then turn that in. So like, now some of them won't have anything. So if I get your notebook file and you haven't changed this, which is super easy, you just left click, edit. It'll be a point off if you didn't do it, but it's pretty trivial. So you're going to be submitting 2 notebook files and 2 PDFs. One for the lab itself and one for the homework. The homework is going to have a lot more for you to do. Yeah. Anything else? What emails should we reach out to if we have questions? You should be able to email me from here. You can email like the person. I should be listed on here, but the
Go to the syllabus, Josh, because our emails are there.
Yeah,
our personal ones. Yeah, right there.
Mine's right here. I need to decide on my office hours. I'll probably have that figured out by Friday. And then Dr. Cleveland's is here. And these are also the emails that were on the email you got the link for this class for. Please include your section and emails if you got any questions. What all were we supposed to do in the lab? It took me a while to download Anaconda. There's not much to do. for lab 0. For the lab, this is installation. All right, some stuff. This used to say hello, insert name or whatever. Change it to your name and run it. This one didn't have anything to it. This one, you need to change it to Markdown. Essentially, you need to just do what I did. And then this one asked you what kind it was, and it was a raw cell. And then you change your name and your R number. That was it. And then the homework, oops, right here. You're going to be doing the stuff in the boxes. So editing, changing, same thing.
What kind of cells are these in the homework right now?
Good question. How might I know?
Okay.
So Jack says
Jack
a raw
says
cell.
raw. You're correct. And it looks like all 3 of them are raw.
It does
So
look that way.
exercise 0.1, after you know what the answer is, you simply type your answer in that location where it says put your answer here, change the cell to a markdown cell, and execute it. So let's say answer is 42, which is, you know, the meaning of life. Mark down it, run it, and that's it. That's exercise 0.1. Only in your case, use the correct answer, not 42.
So I did something very similar to this one right here. This used to be a raw cell. In fact, I mean, there you go. It's a raw cell. And now it's code, and I run it. And I'm using the shift enter. You can also use the play button.
Robert, your question: after installing 64-bit, where do you go to get the code running in Jupyter? So assuming you have Anaconda Navigator, you should have something that
did all this.
Go to the Navigator window, Josh. Yeah, you should have something that looks like that if you're looking at the screen. And the Jupyter Lab we were demonstrating from is right there where Josh is running his cursor about, and you would select the launch button. If you don't have the Navigator screen yet, either the install is not complete.
It's gonna keep running because I have it open already.
So we don't need to put anything when it asks what the cell is for the lab. Well, you need to tell it what kind of cell it is, but yeah, James, there's nothing. So how do we run it? Robert, to run a particular cell, go to a Jupyter Lab window, Josh.
Yep, it's
hang time.
and Ouroboros. So launch is the button I click because it gives me a Jupyter Lab window in my Edge. And I almost always open up this syllabus. Okay. All right. So here's where we were. The question is, how do we run it? Okay. Well, what do we want to run? Who knows? Let's run.
Pick a cell. Pick that
there we
cell.
Go.
Yeah, right there. So right now you'll notice that he's selected a cell. The way you know it's selected is to the left of it, there's blue bars indicating the cell. He actually just cleared the output. So normally it'll look something like that. You'll also notice that there is a square bracket just to the left of the cell that's empty. So that's a cell that's the operating system is waiting for input. It's waiting for you to do something. If he goes up to the menu at the top, there is a button that looks like the forward button on a tape player. I guess I should say on an iPad. And if he presses that button, it will run the selected cell, and then it will advance the operating system to the next available cell.
All right, so it ran it. The other way the hotkey to do that is shift and enter. So I don't know, I'll change it to, I'm gonna hit shift enter. You can't see my hands. Shift enter, there it goes.
And so that's how to run a cell. So when I use the terminology run it, I literally, I mean operate that key. There's also a way to automatically operate the entire notebook. If you go up into, I think it's run. And in this case, you can run selected cells. At the bottom there, he has run every cell. What that will do is it will start at the top of the notebook and it'll run everything. With the exception if there's an error, it stops at the error and you have to repair the error before it continues. So oftentimes I would suggest as you're doing your homeworks, when you get done, before you generate the PDF, go ahead and run all the cells. Just that will guarantee that you have run all the cells and then you're good to go.
Let's see. Can you show how to pull up the file in Anaconda? I'm having trouble. That's the wrong kind of type. We're not opening any files in Anaconda. All Anaconda does is it lets us open up a Jupyter Lab window, which lets us run Python. I'm going to be opening files in the Jupyter Lab. So in order to get the file in here, I open the location wherever it is on my machine. I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it in here. Now it's already here. I'm not going to overwrite it. But now that it's in my bay, I'm just going to open it up. Double click and it's open.
The other way for him to get a file is if he goes to the file menu, and that works like any other software you're familiar with. I think you can browse your file system somehow. I guess you can't. You actually have to know the path. Oh,
yeah.
you can browse the file system. It's actually in the icons. So let's suppose he has a file on the top of his desktop. If he clicks where it has the picture of a folder, ENGR-1330-Lab001. So move your cursor down a little bit. If he clicks over there on that folder, go all the way to the left. It goes up to the high level folder on his computer. So that's probably either your system or your desktop, and you can browse the file system that way. So once you get the file onto your computer, you can use this as a browser if you want. It's not ideal. It's probably best to put files into the directory that you want to use them in. So you notice he has a directory called Engineering-1330. It's the first branch off his highest level directory. And inside that, he created another directory called Lab001. Now he's got Lab013, and in that he can put files. So just like your ordinary file system that you've been working with most of your lives. Okay, let's see what other questions there are to deal with.
How do we get the PDF and the IPYNB? Okay, so the IPYNB, which I will from here on say notebook.
Yeah, IPYNB is already there. Once you have it completed, you want to convert that into a PDF, make an image of it, a copy of it as a PDF.
Right. So you want the notebook file, just right click, download the notebook file. And there it is. And to get the PDF, easiest way, click somewhere on the notebook and then Control P.
Generate the PDF.
And this will let you save it as a PDF. Make sure you don't actually print it to a printer because I don't want paper. The other way you could do it, you can try to export as a PDF. This one is wonky, doesn't always work. So if you couldn't do either of those two, you can export as an HTML, which is right here. And then I'm going to go to HTML to PDF.com, and I'm going to drag my HTML file into the window, and then I'll hit the download button. And what it'll do is it'll give me a zip folder with the PDF inside. Easiest way is Control P. If that doesn't work, you can go here.
So all the questions asking about the Zoom recording, that'll get linked in the Blackboard. It's stored on YouTube, but we'll give you links into that. How do we download HTML?
File.
Oh,
export as.
Download. You just showed how to do it. So so you don't necessarily so Josh showed you download as an option, but recall that this is actually working on your home file system. So you can access these files from your operating system. Because literally on his operating system, there is a folder called Engineering 1330, and then there's subfolders in it.
It's right here.
You could go, well, you're in the browser. You can go outside the browser.
Right.
Go to your desktop. You can access it directly from your desktop.
Desktop.
Whatever.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So if he uses his file browser, which I think is that third icon, there you go. It may not be on your desktop. It's wherever you have Engineering 1330, but you can access the folder directly.
Yep, let me get the path. Copy path. Oops. It's right here. It's just hidden behind oops.
Try in your documents folder. That's the other likely place.
Well, anyway, this is the point of the lab where I make a fool of myself. There will be more than one. I've always had trouble getting to the localhost section. Could you check and see if the lab was
That's a Blackboard question. That's for me.
okay. All right. So for the last 8 minutes, I haven't looked at the clock. When we hit 5:50, that is the time where
we are supposed to quit. Yeah.
Right. So I usually stick around and take questions. But one, you don't have to stick around. Obviously, it's in for any of the lab, but it's probably in your best interest to stick around.
Okay.
For the actual lab. Once hits the 5:50 mark, I won't talk about anything that you would be able to miss. So that's that.
Okay, there's about 8 or 10 of you have done submissions already. I'm looking at James because you asked me to. And you've got the notebook and you got a PDF of some kind. Yes, James, you did it just fine. So everybody who knows James, go ahead and don't copy his stuff, but he knows how to do it. And there's quite a few other of you that have already done it. So I think those of you that we just randomly pick another one. We'll do it for the welding person. Okay, welding person. You have 2 of them that are the homeworks. Those go in the homework section. You did it right. You just sent all 4 to one place. We'll never be able to keep track of that. So send your Lab01330-TH PDF and Python notebook. Those should go into the homework category. And there'll be no penalty for anyone who's done that. I just try to keep them separate. Well, you have to keep them separate. Is the Zoom recording going to be put in Blackboard? A link will be put there when it is rendered. Okay.
Keep in mind that the say intentions of the arcane machine can cause the Zoom recording to not work. and there's not a lot we can do about that.
So fingers crossed. All the Zoom recordings get stored on my YouTube video collection. There's like 3 semesters of this particular class there. You could go look at older ones if you're having trouble sleeping, and it's online Ambien is what I call it. It'll put you out like a light. But we keep them there, and then we link them back to Blackboard. We can't do online learning. Is there anywhere I can go in person where someone could help me? I'm desperately struggling. Well, probably not right this instant, Logan, but we can make that happen. You can schedule an office hour with me, and we'll do a one-to-one Zoom call and bring your machine to life. Okay, I'm going to end the call, and thank you all for your attention. For the so far 2 folks that need hands-on, go ahead and email me, and we can schedule a time, and I can sit down, and hopefully I'll get your stuff working. Remember, Josh and I are not the IT people, so if it's a Texas Tech network thing, it's out of our hands. We can't do shit. But if you got the downloads done, we can probably get the install completed. All right, well, thank you all for your attention. Hang in there. This network stuff gets easier after about a week when everything starts working, and don't feel that you're behind, really. And we will pick this up on Friday and move forward. So have a great day, everyone. I'm going to terminate the lab, and we'll see you Friday. Bye-bye.